And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good morning, sir. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm a little more concerned on how you're doing, Blake, after the overturning of a large truck on that. What we need a
18-wheeler.
we need a little context. What happened
All
with
right.
that whole
So
situation?
let me set the stage.
Yes.
Okay. So I've been married for 5 glorious years, okay, to my wife, Megan. And so now that we have 2 kids, we're done with kids. We're going to try to go out more because, Ben's getting older. But nevertheless, during COVID and all this kind of stuff, we didn't have a lot of time for us to go out. So shout out, you might want to clip this and tag Walk-Ons and Brandon Landry. Shout out to Walk-Ons and Brandon Landry. They he made a restaurant, or he built a restaurant called the Supper Club. Well, Louisiana just doesn't have, like, if you go to New York or LA or
Right.
we don't have like one of those fine, big time bougie restaurants. Okay.
Right.
I did not know that this was about to be bougie. Okay. Like, they are smoke oaking my old fashioned. That the steak was like phenomenal. It was a phenomenal time. Shout out to, I did not know the waiter. I didn't know that we were going to know the waiter. The manager came over. It was our anniversary. They gave us champagne, Crystal.
Wow.
It was glorious.
Whole 9 yards, man.
Whole 9 yards. All right. So listen, last night, fantastic. Okay. So best restaurant, best environment, best thing I've ever done. Brandon Landry, you're the GOAT. However, when we got on the interstate last night to get back home, an 18-wheeler had overturned with Final Destination style. Okay, maybe a little too young for that, Joe, but I
know what it is.
We sat there from 8:45 until 11:45, and then Daddy got pissed. So, you know me, and maybe one day we can talk about what I do outside of the podcasting world. Daddy turned on them lights and we got to rolling, okay? So we got out of there, but it was horrible weather. And look, man, when you get to a situation, like, I'm not really worried about myself at that point. I've been in these type of situations before. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But we got 2 kids at home. My mom's here. My mom had to spend the night. Our lights went out. Luckily we have a home generator. So as the night progressed, it got worse. But I will tell you, it was like we were bougie. We were living the bougie life last night. I'm just going to let you know. I mean, I'm talking about, like, I felt like an NBA player. I felt like LeBron James in this thing. Okay.
Well, I guess that's the silver lining of that sucks sitting on the highway for 3 hours, but it's silver lining. At least you got the good dinner out of it, and you got to have the nice experience. If you ever make it out to LA, I got to take you to some goofy places that fit that.
I will tell you this. You do not have to wine and dine me.
Oh, I'm going to
go to LA. Like, if you give me just a nice steak, like, I don't want. Let me tell you this. Let me just tell you this. Outside of going with my wife to a place like that, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to places like that without my wife. Okay. Like, I just really don't, because listen, what we experienced last night look, I ain't spending that kind of money without no, relations at the end of it all. I'm just going to let you know, I ain't spending that kind of money without relations. Okay.
Well, part of the problem is, though, in LA, most like normal dinner places are
that bougie?
They try to act bougie. Like, I went to an Italian place last night, and I'm not going to share how much I like a normal dinner and like a normal stay, like in New Jersey, would have been probably like $30-$40 less. Like, it's just like overpriced. They act a little bit over the top.
Well, this place was not over. Well, it was rightfully priced for what we did. I mean, brother, I'm just telling you, that
would have been a $500 dinner in LA, I bet.
Well, I mean, listen. I'm okay with that. Like, let me tell you this. I thought we were going in there, and I had put $500 aside. I'm like, listen, this is my limit. Once you hit I gotta tell you something. Once you hit that limit, it's over. But before we get to the football talk of the show, so last night, okay, listen, I'm not a dessert guy. I do not like desserts.
Really?
Yeah, just give me potato chips. If I'm going to splurge a little, give me more steak, give me more veggies, give me more salt. I don't, sweets are just not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy, we had this ice cream butter cake.
Oh,
Dog, it is the best dessert on planet Earth. Nothing has ever compared to this. And the waiter's like, well, listen, and I knew the guy, believe it or not. I didn't even know that we would know him. He's like, Blake, I'm gonna leave you this spoon because I just don't think you understand what you're about to get yourself into. Whatever. He gives me the spoon. They come out, okay? And oh my God, Joe. Oh my God. I'm talking about like I would punt a small child to have this dessert again. Like I would drop 30 kids to get back here.
What kind of ice cream was it? Just vanilla?
Really, you know what? I don't even want to know. You know what it really was? I told the manager this last night. I forget her name, Miss Lopez. Legitimately, okay, it was like manna from heaven. Okay, manna. It came from the heavens.
Oh my
That's
God,
how good this thing was.
I'm so jealous of this. You're selling me hard. If I make it over to Louisiana, you're taking me here.
Oh, we're going. We're going. And I'm going to make Braun pay. Anyway, nevertheless, we are live. We got a lot to talk about here this morning, Joe. I got to tell you something.
Yes.
I do want to add on to something that we are going to talk about. You wanted to talk about the recruiting side. Is Michigan overtaking Ohio State? I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. Got to talk about these 2023 projections, though. I put that in there for this reason. Recruiting can change like that.
Yes.
So I think that we should do projections and recruiting. I'll let you lead it off, though, when we talk about all that, because I think we got to get to a point where, look, some of these guys can decommit. I will tell you, though, and there's only one specific area that Michigan's out recruiting Ohio State. Only one. And I think once we get through this, is Michigan overtaking Ohio State? I think that's what we're going to talk about mostly today. Like, we can talk about recruiting and all that, but I think our main goal today is Michigan overtaking Ohio State after 2 straight wins and 2 titles.
Yes. Yeah, no, the way that we've seen things play out on the field, I think a lot of people can sit here and agree that Michigan is surging and Ohio State is kind of stagnated a little bit. I have a good friend of mine who tunes into the show, who is a Michigan fan. And when I put out my top programs list, he was not very happy with my placement of Michigan being lower than Ohio State for that reasoning. But I think if we dive a little deeper, recruiting tells a lot. And I think that sometimes not every recruiting headline deserves to be brought up on a national college football show. But when you have the signing of Jadyn Davis that happened this past week, that to me is a big signaler of what is to come. And we're going to dive into that and talk about the significance of it and just my recruiting background. I'd like to discuss what that means for the future of Michigan, getting a guy like that in this class. We'll dive into all of it, but it's just a really interesting headline for them to grab him. And then Ohio State gets a 5-star receiver. It's a really, really aggressive back and forth when in the past it hasn't been. It's been all Ohio State.
Yeah. However, there's one thing. So listen, there's one thing that Ohio State's not doing in recruiting that Michigan is tearing their behind on. Okay. You know what that is?
It's quarterback.
No, Michigan is tearing up Ohio State in this. Yeah. You know where it is? Offensive line.
Really?
Yes. I went through it this morning again. Ohio State's getting that ass beat in the portal on offensive line. And what happened the last 2 seasons on why Michigan beat Ohio State down? Joe, we're talking about 250 rushing yards. We're talking about 200 rushing yards. Back-to-back games for Michigan. Ohio State is getting beat up front. That's it. It doesn't matter what receiver. Look, we were just talking about desserts, right? Receivers are the whipped cream of desserts. right? They're the topping on everything. They make the dish because they're the flashy guy, they're whatever. You know what the base of all this is? The base of that dessert, what you do up front, okay? The cake is what you do up front. Michigan is tearing Ohio State's rear end up, not only in recruiting in the portal. I don't care, Joe, necessarily. So let's do this. Before we get into all this, let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline, because then we can go into all of this. But I want to get into that. So everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share at the end of the show and through the show. Do us a favor by, if you have any questions, we're doing our mailbag segment at the end.
We got a few too, which is pretty good. Some people are chiming in quick, and keep commenting them as we go, and we're going to get to a lot of questions for the second half of today's show.
Awesome. I'll answer this one as an example very quickly. Ethan Dole says, breaking news, Haley Van Lith into the transfer portal. Does she come down? Look,
I don't even know who that is. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
The girl with the pigtails, the braid pigtails. She went to Louisville, and her and Kate.
From
Louisville that Caitlin Clark said, shut up, you're down by 15. If that girl comes to LSU and we got an Iowa LSU rematch in women's basketball, baby,
that's got to happen. She's got to pick.
Got to happen. Look, listen, I'm walking around Baton Rouge with fake eyelashes on. I say, call me Angel Reese, damn it. I mean, that's what we got going on. But anyway, everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those social media groups. You're on Facebook. Share those SEC college football groups and your own social media pages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe there as well. All right, Joe, we're about to get into this. I think it's going to be a really fun one. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline, though, first. We'll be right back in 45 seconds to talk some Big Ten football. Who's the real king of the North? It's not Jon Snow. Back in a minute. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. I missed the we're back. I know that we get.
You can use it. You can use it.
We're back.
You use that a lot on your other show too, by the way. I didn't notice how much you use that on yours.
Only twice again. Only twice a show.
Only twice a show. Come on, that's more than you use it on this one.
We only have one commercial.
That's true, but there's less Texas affiliation or possibility of bringing it up on the LSU show than you were on this show.
You know what we'll do? Next time we'll do this. We're back. Like Mike Jones.
Okay, right. Fair.
Let's get this thing rolling. So listen, Joe, you came up with an interesting topic. I'm going to let you go with it first.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to say this. When people are talking about Ohio State getting overtaken in recruiting by Michigan, Michigan last year finished 17th in the country, and Ohio State finished 5th. We got a long way to go before the early signing day in December. We got a long way to go until February. I personally am not going to overreact here to Michigan being the number 2 team in the country when it comes to recruiting. They overtook LSU late this week. They got a 5-star quarterback. I get that. Joe, are we really about to have a conversation, though, of Michigan overtaking Ohio State because of what they've just done so far? I mean, like, is Michigan really overtaking Ohio State when it comes to recruiting?
So what inspired this topic, Blake, is the back and forth headlines of 2 key recruits signing with both programs. So Michigan signs Jadyn Davis, as I mentioned earlier, which is a 5-star quarterback in the 2024 cycle. Ohio State, then a little bit later, they ended up, sign is not the correct word, got a commitment from a 5-star quarterback. Ohio State pulls a 5-star wide receiver, Mylan Davis, for their recruiting class. And where I was intrigued by this is that if you look at these two teams that are significant rivals, it is more unlikely for a 5-star quarterback to pick Michigan than it is for a 5-star receiver to pick Ohio State.
I agree with that. That's a great analysis.
That receiver signing for me doesn't really do anything for me because I know that they're going to go and get those kids. And if they miss out on one guy, they're going to go and get somebody else. But what is really, I think, sets off all the alarms and all the watch out for this because this is significant. This year's recruiting class, the 2024 cycle, is not anywhere near what the 2023 cycle was like last year. There were a lot of really good quarterbacks. This year's class of quarterback stinks. It is bad. It is Dylan Raiola.
You think so?
After Dylan Raiola and Jadyn Davis, it starts to really drop off. If you talk to a lot of recruiting analysts, they will say that it is a really, and I know that, some people take what their opinions, with a grain of salt, but they will agree that there is a pretty significant drop off after that second guy in Jadyn Davis. So for them to come out here, pull one of the very few blue chip guys as one of the players in their class and a top quarterback, that is very significant. It is usually Ohio State who pulls these guys, and they had Dylan Raiola who decommitted, and it seems like there has been a break in that relationship. So right now, if we're looking at the most important position on the field, Michigan has a significant pull over Ohio State. I'm not going to sit here and say that they've overtaken them, but I think that this is a key thing to monitor, that they were able to get a guy that I think most would have anticipated would not have really been on Michigan's radar.
I'm going to push back just a little bit. I know that Raiola, but you still have Julian Sain, DJ Lagway, CJ Carr, Jake Merklinger, I think was his name.
All those guys are 4-stars, and they're not within.
Hold on. Yes, let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
Okay. We did a deep dive on 247. We did a deep dive on, the first year of On 3 on our AYS show. Mm-hmm. Joe, they missed too much.
Yes.
They missed way too much. Here's what the truth of it all is. You want to hear what the truth is? Mm-hmm. These guys, like Colin Hurley, was a 5-star guy that they after he reclassified. CJ Carr was a guy that we wanted to reclassify. Then he took a step back after he committed to Notre Dame. Listen, historically, when a position group is down in recruiting services, means when it comes draft time, they're the best. Look at what's going on with this draft right now. Okay, defensive line was down. Will Anderson and Jalen Carter said, "Suck on my rear end." Okay, so let's just calm down just a minute. Okay, I want to preface that. However, I agree with you. CJ Carr, who is a legacy at Michigan, okay? His grandfather coached there. He's a Hall of Famer. We get all that. He commits to Notre Dame. I don't think that the commitment necessarily of Jadyn Davis committing to Michigan is as big to Ohio State as it is for Michigan not getting CJ Carr. When I saw Jadyn Davis commit to Michigan, I'm like, hey, man, Harbaugh for 6 months took an outright beating from his fan base that the Carr kid was going to Notre Dame and not Michigan. And all he did was he went and got a better quarterback. The kid Jadyn Davis is literally ranked ahead one spot than CJ Carr. That's how you win in recruiting, okay? I don't really Ohio State, as an example, okay, has done so good at quarterback over the years. They had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback sitting behind JT Barrett. I forget the young man who passed away tragically.
Dwayne Haskins.
The guy sitting behind the both of those dudes, his name was Burrow. Okay. Ohio State, as an example, 2 drafts ago, when it was Burrow, Chase Young, and Acuna, they could have had the first 3 overall picks. I'm going to calm down with a little bit on the simple nature that Michigan's overtaking Ohio State. But here's my ultimate thing. This is where Ohio State is getting their absolute rear ends torn up. Joe, when you're in middle school and you get in trouble and the assistant principal's coming out with the paddle and it's got the little holes in the paddle. So when it hits you on your rear end and it rears back, the suction is pulling your booty cheeks. Okay, maybe you weren't a bad kid. Maybe that's a thing in the South when kids get paddled.
Yeah.
This is where Michigan is tearing up Ohio State. You ready? Ohio State is not going in the portal. And before you say, well, the portal doesn't mean anything. Really? Because this is what Michigan just went and got. You ready? Ladarius Henderson, interior offensive lineman. Miles Hinton and Drake Nugent, Stanford offensive lineman. Oh, by the way, Michigan had the best offensive line in the country last year. They're returning 4 of them. They're only getting better. Here's another thing. I went over to Ohio State. You know what they get out of the portal? Mostly skill guys.
Yes.
Mostly skill guys. Yes. Doesn't matter. They're getting that ass worn out up front. And the truth, Michigan does. This is the ultimate. The rivalry and the recruiting between Ohio State and Michigan is the ultimate determination of what wins you football games, up front or skill. Joe, I could care less that Ohio State got another 5-star receiver. Sounds cute when you're getting beat by teams that can beat you up, or play teams that can beat you up front, a.k.a. Georgia, a.k.a. Michigan. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care what that composite score ranking is when it comes down to Michigan having a better overall class, in my opinion, than 17. They're beating you up front. That is how the game is won. Bottom line, until Ryan, it's like some of these teams have these misconceptions about them. Like Ohio State, and look, Ohio State, what's the kid's name that's going to get drafted high?
Paris Johnson.
Okay, sounds good. You got to get 4 more of them dudes to really do something.
Yeah.
Joe, the truth between – I said this on my show this week from an LSU perspective, from an Alabama perspective, from everybody's perspective in college athletics, especially college football. You're not chasing Ohio State anymore. You know who you're now chasing? Georgia. Because until you can get enough dudes up front that can overcome what they give you, you're not going to win anyway. Joe, I will take a little bit less skilled players, just a little bit. I don't need the 5-star guy. Go get me the dudes that can win you the game up front. You know who? Especially when we talk about recruiting, like Jamar Chase is the lowest or one of the lower rated 4-stars. And I know Believe came out with, well, who's the best skill guy? And I'm like, dude, Jamar Chase was a low rated 4-star. I look at who's the kid from Ohio State that went to Alabama? Jamison Williams.
Yep.
Low rated 4-star. And I'm like, that kid's better than everybody. I was preaching from the rafters when Jamison Williams came out. I'm like, this kid is unreal. What are you talking about? Like, this kid's a first round pick. What are we doing here? Until Ohio State gets serious about recruiting up front, they're going to continue to get beat by Michigan. That's how I see it.
So
okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm cutting you off.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
A couple thoughts on that. So one thing that I always find really interesting with offensive line recruiting, everyone assumes offensive linemen are just, brutes, assumes that they're not going to be the smartest kids and they're not going to go to the best schools.
Historically through the draft, do you know what position group scores the highest on the Wonderlic test, not named quarterback?
It's offensive line.
Offensive line.
So a lot of times if you monitor these recruiting classes and you pay attention to, and you look at where the top guys sign, a lot of them pick good academic institutions. Now, you're going to have the instances of Caden Proctor switching from Iowa to Alabama.
The little kid went to Stanford. He was the number 3 overall kid in the recruiting. He goes to Stanford. I'm like, what, you going to go up there and hug some trees? Like, what are we doing here?
But exactly my point, though, is that it's a position where you have a lot of really smart guys. And I always find it funny, not funny, but if you meet people outside of football that are really high up at various businesses and whatnot that are really focused on academics in school, a lot of them played offensive line. And I think that helps
Yeah, we
Michigan in the
did.
circumstance. You're not in this category.
Okay. Okay.
It really helps Michigan in that stance. And there's a reason why, like Notre Dame, for example, always recruits well along the offensive line, is because they're able to attract those certain types of kids. I will say, though, I push back a little bit on the notion that it's not that they're not getting good enough athletes, Ohio State, for the offensive line position. I have concern with the development and the mentality that they bring to the position. So, for example, Paris Johnson, highly recruited tackle, plays guard, bumps out the tackle, really good football player.
Smartest move he ever made.
Yes, great athlete. Is he consistently aggressive, and does he have the right demeanor snap to snap? That's
No, he
remains to be
does
seen.
not.
Luke Whippler, who's going to be drafted highly this year as their starting center, really good athlete, moves really well. Not the most consistently strong and aggressive player.
I'm going to tell you something very quickly about him.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of buddies of mine, we were sitting here watching the Ohio State-Michigan game,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at them. I'm like, what is he calling on this protection?
Yeah.
What is he doing? He just did. It seemed like the game was way too fast for him, but continue.
He's a young guy, so that doesn't surprise me. And then the last darling of the draft class amongst the offensive linemen is DeWan Jones, who's 6'8", he's 350 pounds, massive freaking kid. And everyone's saying, like, oh, this is going to be a second-round pick. Guys aren't supposed to be able to move that well for this size. The funny thing about DeWan Jones, he actually came on the Draft Prospect show that I do with Ryan Roberts, and he basically stated he's only playing football because he's this big. He loves basketball more than he loves football. My main point here is that you've got a group of guys, and you're not recruiting the right ones. You're recruiting a lot of good athletes that you're going to show up and you're going to kick the crap out of Maryland. You're going to kick the crap out of Rutgers. And they do that. They do that on a week-to-week basis. They can match up well with other good defensive lines that have good athletes. But when you get punched in the face by a team like Michigan that is a lot more physical and a lot more aggressive and has the right kids, the right recruits, and have developed them into the right mentality, a hard-working mentality, you're going to lose those games. That's where I have the cause for concern. Is it's not so much they're not getting the athletes, they're not developing them, and they're not getting the guys that fit what you need to be physical up front.
It's hard, Joe, to counteract that, and look, like Chris says in the chat, you forgot Ohio State probably should have won the Natty this year. No, they shouldn't have. No, they shouldn't have. You know what probably works in? Hand grenades and horseshoes. Being close to something only works when in hand grenades. Like if somebody's throwing a hand grenade at you, it doesn't matter that they should have almost won it. They still got beat by Michigan. They still didn't win their conference. They still haven't won the conference the last 2 years. They've still been out of the playoff. They've gotten beaten by Georgia. Great. You came closest to beating Georgia last year. Sounds good for you. You also had a game plan and a game plan printed out for you against Georgia that you had. And you know what happened, Joe? When your best wide receiver went out in Ohio State, what happened? You crumbled. Joe, they could have easily lined up and tried to run the football, at least to burn some clock, get a couple first downs. Don't tell me that Georgia doesn't give up first downs last year. They gave up a handful of third downs running the football. I remember LSU. I remember Missouri. I remember some of these games that they're giving up first downs. Missouri being the number one team that they were giving up first downs on third down in the running game. Don't tell me it can't happen. You're supposed to be one of the pinnacles, one of the blue bloods. Well, like I say all the time, it does not matter if you're a blue blood when you're getting your teeth kicked in up front. It never matters. Now, here's the thing. The only thing that I'm going to counteract this and stick up for Ohio State. You ready? Listen to me. When I say this, don't freak out. Don't freak out, okay?
Okay.
It's just the truth. I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to argue, okay?
Okay.
I just went and looked this morning because I was like, you know what? If I'm going to go with it's way too early, let me just – because it is, Joe, it's way too early. We got, 9 months until December, right? Like, so come on. Maybe not 9 months. Yeah, close to
Notre Dame was number one this time last year, and they finished ninth. So
okay.
good example.
I don't mean that in a wrong way. I legitimately don't. Okay. But things happen when the season starts. So to say Ohio State is not going to be ahead of Michigan in recruiting, I'm going to just take a little step back. I got to see Michigan actually take them over in recruiting before I start saying anything about maybe there is an issue at Ohio State. Until, I got to see it first, Joe. I got to see it because, again, Notre Dame was beating seven SEC teams.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of it all, they were behind all of them. So again,
I get that.
I really am not trying to put poo on Notre Dame. All I'm saying is the top two kids that are going to be, or at the time committed to Notre Dame. One kid went to Alabama, and then you didn't get Peyton Bowen. We all know what happened there. That's all that I'm trying to say here. It's all I'm trying to paint the picture of.
Okay, I get that, but so here's where the angle that I'm approaching this a little bit differently, and I led in with this at the beginning. I'm not so much paying attention to the fact that where do they finish in the rankings, who finishes with the higher rated recruiting class, because as we said, those rankings are relatively arbitrary. It's a lot of information compiling by these sites that puts these rankings together. It is an aggregation of data that places them where they are, and it's numbers given to kids based on how they were graded.
Joe, did you know, as an example, very quickly, that the evaluators for 247 had not gone inside the state of Louisiana, Mississippi, and only parts of Alabama since COVID?
I would believe that.
Okay, well, so spare me with the, when they say we've gone and seen, no, you hadn't. You saw them at a camp in their underwear.
Well, to that point, even further, there are notoriously, if you ask anyone who covers recruiting for team specific, you ask anyone and they're going to tell you, they sometimes will just put a 4-star, 3-star rating on a kid that they've never seen because Alabama offered them. They do that all of the time because they just need to have their T's crossed.
And listen, I'm actually okay with that. If Nick Saban offers a kid, if Nick offers a kid like a real offer, okay. You know what I mean? There are certain coaches that if they get a real offer from, I'm okay with it. What I don't like is the Bama bump, right? If you, everybody in the South knows, kids get Bama bumps all the time. I'll give you an example, okay? So 247 had Aaron Anderson. Okay, this is 2 years ago. Aaron Anderson was the 1,500 overall recruit in the country. Buddy, I was out here screaming from the rafters. The kid's a 5-star. The kid's a 5-star. Screaming it. He commits to the University of Alabama. He went from 1,500 to 27th.
Exactly.
Insanity.
They don't do their due diligence oftentimes.
No, they don't.
So that's why for my sake of this argument, I'm not putting too much stock into where these rankings end up. My main focus here is on that fact that they don't frequently get these 5-star recruits. The last guy that they got was JJ McCarthy, and they've been waiting for that next guy to come up. I really do believe in it. I know that you're going to reiterate the point that you made at the beginning of the show, that just because there's not that many 5-star quarterbacks in this class doesn't mean that there's not good quarterbacks. But I think if you evaluate and we sit here and we watched all the tape on the quarterbacks, which I haven't done, we would agree that Jadyn Davis is significantly higher than the next best guy in the class. There is a drop off.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. Here's why.
Okay.
Because Jadyn Davis went to a couple of these camps, and as a thrower, he was not impressive.
Okay.
He wasn't more impressive than Colin Hurley. He wasn't more impressive than CJ Carr. He wasn't more impressive than Raiola. He wasn't more. But you know what he does that I think he fits team specific stuff, right? As an example, if you give that kid 3 reads on a bootleg and one of those reads is him running, you're in deep shit. Yeah. I'm just going to call it what it is. You're in deep trouble. You know who he is, in my opinion. He is a more polished Trey Lance. That's how
Good comp.
that's how I see him. And look, because of watching the Colin Hurley kid, which he's been on my show. I think he's a good kid. I watched the Jadyn Davis kid because they thought he was going somewhere else outside of Michigan. I'm like, bro, if Michigan does get this dude,
it's significant.
It's significant. And I agree with you there. It is a massive deal that Harbaugh is able to pluck a 5-star quarterback. If they can get some receivers to come along with him, then watch out. That the biggest thing for me for Michigan in this recruiting aspect is the only piece of if they go out there and start getting some legitimate, and I'm talking about legitimate 4-star recruits when it comes to the skill positions,
which they will. Usually when you get these quarterbacks, they bring a collective of guys that are
correct.
They've met at these camps. They got
the Jacob Oden kid, the running back from I forget where the kid's from, but they got the running back. They've had some visits, but listen, they're just doing some really good things right now, Joe, in recruiting that I don't think you can take away from. NIL is becoming a little bit of a thing for them. They're putting some money there, and it's an academic institution. Here's my only thing I'm gonna end with this. Okay. Is right now this is the top, and I stopped at Ohio State because it's Georgia, Michigan, LSU, Ohio State. I want to see what it's like at the end. You know who's not in that top 5 yet? Bama. So again, hold off on what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because here's another thing. A&M, look, we're not, as much as I poo-poo on Billy Napier, dog's kind of rolling a little bit in recruiting. So again, Michigan's not going to end it too. They're not.
And Alabama's certainly going to flip a bunch of kids like they did this past cycle. They do it they almost wait for everybody to go get their bids in on everyone, and then they're like last month they go and pull everyone like they did with Caden Proctor, who's the top offensive lineman in the class.
Well, and Iowa just sucks. Let's call it what it is.
Well, the kid's from Iowa. That's the only reason why he was committed there.
Right. I mean, let me go down. Alabama is currently has 4 commits. They're ranked 19th in the class per 247. You want to hear some of the teams that are better in recruiting very quickly, better than Alabama right now?
Yeah, let's hear
Minnesota, Wake Forest, Clemson,
oh my God,
Iowa, Texas Tech, Florida, Oregon, South Carolina, North Carolina, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Florida State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, and Georgia.
How the hell is Wake Forest in Minnesota? Who do they pull?
Because they have recruits. They have more recruits than Alabama does.
Stupid. Well, that's like last year. Texas Tech was like a top 5 class.
Now listen. We're gonna have to talk about Texas Tech.
Oh, they got a kid that I really like that they
no. We're gonna have to talk about Texas Tech. I ain't talking about they got a kid.
Good or bad way.
We're gonna have to talk about them as a program.
Oh yeah, no, I think they're very positive direction.
You want to find your TCU last year?
Texas Tech. I said it on the show. We did breakout stars.
I started researching them after you said that because I wanted to absolutely dump on your take there. Boy, was I wrong.
If you have a sec this weekend, go watch Dre McRae from Austin.
I did. It's bull BS. I wanted to tell you were an idiot. Now I can't tell you're an idiot. Every time you say something, I try to find a way to call you an idiot. And then when you
I do my research. I know my stuff.
Well, if I'm silent on one of your takes, it's like, God damn it.
Seriously, though, watch Austin P versus Alabama. Dre McRae. He's going to be one of the best receivers in the country. He's going to be one of the best receivers in the country.
All right, let me ask you this, though. Let's transition here a little bit before we get to questions. What are the real expectations for 2023 for both these teams? Now, candid. I have been out there saying I like Penn State more than these two teams. If Penn State's quarterback situation goes the way I think it's going to go, I like Penn State. Joe, you know where I'm sitting at right now? if I had to make a bet today, even though I think Penn State's going to ultimately take it over this year alone, if I had to make a pick though, I'm going with Michigan. I'm going with Michigan and win the Big 12, Big 10 again. I don't know where you can. Here's the thing when I break down Michigan like I was doing this week when we were going to talk about this or this last couple of days. This is the thing. Buddy, they're returning their offensive line. They got some new pieces on the defensive line. They got a lot of guys returning. They got some really good linebackers. Their DBs aren't that bad. I love their coaching staff. I think Harbaugh, as an example, gets ridiculed too much for what Michigan really is. I'm going to tell you something. How is Michigan a blue blood when they haven't won as many national titles as anybody else? I think Harbaugh, as an example, is a damn good coach. I think they're a damn good team. And for me, until Ohio State shows that they give a damn up front, I'm not picking them to win a damn thing.
I second that statement, and as much as it pains me to support Michigan, being a Notre Dame fan, I do agree with that if they didn't lose anybody. That whole effort to return a bunch of fifth-year seniors in like Blake Corum and key offensive linemen is really big. A starting 5-star quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who showed a lot of positive signs of progression, returning. I think that he is good enough, and I've said this on other shows before, and I've gotten laughed at it. Dude, the guy's got some skill, and I think he's going to be a first-round pick when it's all said and done at the end of the season. He's got the traits. He's got, as much as we sit here and we go crazy over Anthony Richardson, we're going to do it. We're going to do it over J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy.
Great head ass.
He's a great football player. And then the last bit on this, first of all, Michigan needs to win the Big Ten. Big Ten or bust. Ohio State.
Oh, hold on. Say Michigan's got to win the Big Ten or bust?
I don't see them. There's no reason why they should do anything lower with everything that they're returning. They didn't send that many guys to the draft this year.
They just won the Big Ten twice.
It is an underachievement if they don't win the Big Ten again with the roster.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because I don't think people are giving Penn State enough credit.
Penn State's got a young, talented team. Michigan's got a veteran, talented team.
I agree with that. I'm not going to say it's a bust. Because Joe, Ohio State could still make the playoff and almost beat Georgia.
It's true. That's true. And my thoughts, though, just quickly on Ohio State. If they finish with better than 2 losses, I think that's a good season for them. I think that everyone would get upset over that thought, and Ohio State fans would get upset over that thought. But you're losing 3 offensive line starters. You're losing your starting quarterback. You're losing a receiver that you didn't have that didn't play. There's a lot of defensive players, too, that there's question marks on returning. They're going to lose a dumb football game next year. It's going to happen. And I don't know who's their quarterback.
Well, nobody knows.
No.
Here's the ultimate question. Are they really going to fire Ryan Day? If he loses 2 games, are they really going to fire him? Joe,
I don't know.
He'd be what? What would his record be? Let's look it up really quickly. Hold on.
He has a good record and a good recruiting background, so it feels weird holding him accountable and trying to fire him over stuff like that. But at the same time,
he's 45-6. So then
that's a good record.
He would be 55-8. If they went 10-2, he'd be 55-8.
That's better than a lot of coaches in the country, though.
You know who that would tie? You know who had a 55-8 record before they started winning natties? Kirby.
Yes, exactly. But you got to win I think the difference is that Kirby took over a team that was very mediocre. Georgia was average. Georgia was really freaking average.
I'm not gonna say that. They were playing for SEC championships games. They were,
but they weren't what they are right now. They were a team that was competitive.
Nobody was Alabama.
That's true. No, but I'm saying
nobody was Alabama. I mean, yeah, he took it to the next level, but let's not act as if. Look, that's cap because everybody says that about Kirby. That's a lie. What's his name? Mark Richt had top 10 recruiting class after top 10 recruiting class after top 10 recruiting class after top 10 recruiting class. That's BS. That's horse manure. I don't want to hear that he took over. Joe, they
There's
have played. Listen to this.
Okay.
They have played in almost the same amount of SEC title games as Alabama.
Yes.
So
Yes,
don't tell me that they were don't tell me that they were a lower program. They play more SEC title games, if I'm not mistaken, more than Florida.
But my thought here, and the reason why
they
they
play
moved
more than Tennessee.
My thought here and why they moved on from Rick is that they couldn't get over that hump of being 2 to 3 losses.
Well,
they wanted to be back in national.
They didn't outright fire Rick. He stepped down.
Yeah.
Because you can't fire a coach that's going 9-3 every year.
Right. That's the thing, is that they were average wasn't the right word.
It's less miles.
Average wasn't the right word. Above average. They weren't a national championship.
They were
contender.
a good team. They were a good team. They were a good program.
Good
they
team,
were good,
but not what they are right now.
No, nobody. But again, what are we talking about?
Yes.
Nobody is.
But the point I was trying to make here, it's not Georgia related. It's that Kirby took the team a step forward from good to elite. Ryan Day took over elite and brought them down to good. That's the difference. And that's why the conversation has now been brought up of, do we fire Ryan Day if he's not beating Michigan and they're not winning titles? We don't want to be Wisconsin.
Beep. Beep. Timeout.
Okay.
Cap.
What do you mean cap? Cap on what?
Here's why it's cap. Urban Meyer got blanked by Clemson in a playoff game. Blanked.
Still won a natty.
Okay. Sounds great. Sounds great. Sounds fantastic. How many did he win in 10 years?
Is it one?
One.
Still won a natty.
You're right. I'm not comparing Ryan Day to Urban Meyer as a coach. I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is, don't say that when we were calling Purdue the spoiler makers because they were beating Ohio State every year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Ohio State had some really bad losses and some really bad stuff happened to them under Urban Meyer. They are the exact. You want to know the truth? Here's the truth. You ready? It gets magnified because they're losing to Michigan and they're not winning the Big Ten. But now that they have a team that's in that division that's actually capable of winning, they're starting to falter. It's like the old saying, and Joe, I told you this.
Yes. We
talked about our top 10 programs. Everybody was getting on to me about not putting Ohio State higher. But then we come into this discussion and we talk about this and everybody's like, oh, well, they're going to win. They're going to go 10-2 next year. Well, how am I? If they go 10-2 and don't make another playoff, they are the most overrated program in the country with what they recruit. If they can't win the Big Ten, it is not as if Ohio State has the gauntlet that the SEC does.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, there is not. Let me just tell you something. Alabama, Georgia, name the school. They don't have to play in order within a month. Tennessee, South Carolina, who, by the way, was not a bad team at the end of the stretch. They're still a good team down the stretch. LSU, the worst team in the SEC, maybe, and Texas A&M has 14 5-stars. So spare me that Ohio State's not the most overrated team in the program when finally a team breaks through and it can actually compete for once, and they keep losing to Michigan. This isn't anything. This isn't Urban didn't. Here's the thing that I would say that Ryan Day has to overcome that Urban Meyer didn't. Mm-hmm. Name a team in the Big Ten that was on Michigan's level when Urban Meyer was in the Big Ten.
Wisconsin. Well, not on Michigan's current level, but was competitive. Was Wisconsin.
They were a 9-3 team. They were always a 9-3 team. They were just a good team. Yeah. They weren't on the level of Michigan. There was never once a team in the Big Ten that could be like a Michigan that Urban Meyer had to consistently go against on a year-in, year-out basis. Is that not fair?
That is correct. That's true.
Okay, let me get into this. I don't disagree with you on your thought process of them going 10-2 because I think for the first time, now I say all that, I think it's a 3-team race in the Big Ten. I really do believe 2 Big Ten teams could get into the final, the playoff this year, and it's last year of being 4 teams. I've told you what I thought about Penn State. I told you what I thought about Michigan. And now you know what I know. I think about Ohio State. Joe, they don't know who their quarterback is. But here's the problem with that. It don't matter sometimes what quarterback you got. if Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide ass open and can take it to the hizzy, might not really matter.
Mm-hmm.
They got to get better at being more physical on both lines of scrimmage. That's it. That's it. You are getting beat by teams because you're not good up front. That's it. There's no. That's the simple and true nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who do you? By the way, I said I think Penn State. I'm going to pick Michigan at right now, but I think Penn State is trending. Who do you think wins the Big Ten?
It's Michigan.
Okay.
Michigan wins the Big Ten.
Michigan. Okay.
So I think it's more of a foregone conclusion than for me than what it is for you.
Okay.
I think Penn State's going to be good next year, but I just like Drew Allar's an athlete. He's a good football player, but I don't know if I'm going to be that confident to don him this elite player if he hasn't taken enough snaps yet.
We'll
see. They got elite kids on Ohio State, so it's like the same difference.
All right, Antoine Johnson. He's had a lot of great comments in here today. Okay, but he said Ohio State might not get past Notre Dame. Stop the cap.
They don't. I think that Notre Dame could give them a run for their money.
Don't you dare come in here. Don't you dare come in here.
No, that game is going to be a hard-fought battle. Don't act like that first game of the season.
Notre Dame's going to get them cheeks clapped.
Notre Dame kept it close with them in week 1 this year, and they didn't have a quarterback. They got Sam Hartman now, and CJ Stroud's gone.
Texas kept it close with Alabama. Doesn't matter.
They're going to beat them. Watch.
It's funny because, hold on.
Notre Dame's going to beat Ohio State. Watch. I'm going to sit the whole damn offseason.
Want to make a bet?
What are we betting?
Anything.
We've bet too many things. I think we've got like 5
and
different
I've never
bets
made you pay.
Not all of them have come to fruition yet.
You're legitimately 0-4 on these bets, and I've never made you pay.
That's not true. Name all the bets
one that you've won. Name
I
one.
I don't remember any of the bets because we don't write them down. That's my point.
You can't remember when I say name one.
I don't remember these. I have a terrible memory. We should have wrote them down.
You have a terrible memory. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Notre Dame's gonna beat Ohio State. Okay. You want to talk about a team that gets their asses beat up front?
Not Notre Dame. They have the athletes at offensive line. No. The issues that they have is at the quarterback position, at the receiver position. That was what held them back. Don't act like they don't have the bodies up front at the offensive line. Come on now. We're watching this. We're watching the same football team. Blake,
Joe,
come
Marshall pushed them around.
That was
Joe.
All on.
Okay.
Ohio State quarterback play.
Okay. Cool. Stanford pushed them around up front.
Quarterback play.
No.
Drew Pine played like shit. That was the worst game I've seen from Drew Pine. I blame that all on Drew Pine, and he's gone now.
Notre Dame and who were we talking? Stanford box score. Hey, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Let me do this. I don't know why this isn't pulling up.
Because
I don't know why it's not pulling.
Yeah,
up.
because you've pulled up the numbers that.
No, it's really not pulling up.
Correct.
Let me see if I can click this one. All right, here we go. This one worked.
All right. How many sacks?
Let's see. Share screen. Man, I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, here we go. Yeah, it was Drew Pine's fault.
He had 151 yards, and he threw for 15 for 27. I watched him airmail guys that were on flare out.
You had Chris Tyree, 3.1 yards per carry. Drew Pine, 3.8 yards per carry. Jadyn Thomas didn't even get a damn yard. You should have continued to finish.
Look up the defensive stats.
All right.
How many tackles for loss?
The Casey kid had 91 yards. They ran it down your throat. They ran it down your throat.
Look at the passing total that Tanner McKee had.
It doesn't matter the passing total. They
had a more balanced thought. They had a more balanced offense in that game.
Well, hold on. Google.
It's not hard to. It's not hard to stop a team when you know what they're doing every single play.
Hold on. Let's get here. Hold on. Good googly moogly. whoever Colleen LeBron is, 31 carries, 163. The King kid, 1 carry, 30 yards. You're going to sit here and tell me that you weren't getting beat up front? Damn. Look, Tyler Buckner. Look at this. 44 yards, 33 yards, 22 yards. One dude had one explosive run.
When you have a quarterback as bad,
Marshall clapped those cheeks.
When you have quarterback play as bad as Notre Dame did, it's not hard to stop a team when you know that all they can do is run the ball.
You can't run the ball against Marshall. You can't run the ball against Marshall, and it's Buckner's fault. That's what you're going to come in here and tell me?
We sat here and chat on Tommy Rees because we both agreed that he's a bad play caller.
Is that what you're trying to say? You can't run the ball against Marshall.
I put no blame on the offensive line. I put no blame on the offensive line.
Do you know how idiotic that is?
It's not idiotic. I don't put blame on the offensive line. I put it on the play calling and the quarterback play. It all goes down to that. It all goes down to that.
All right. You want to get to some of these mailbag questions?
Yeah, let's get we had a couple good comments from Colin. We're going to get to I'm not answering the athletic director's one that he commented.
Why?
How many athletic directors do you know off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I'd probably do 10.
I could do 3. Like Colin, a nice try.
He's just trying to get you that Schwarbeck sucks.
Yeah. He's very deliberate. Let's answer this one. Anything on Hugh Freeze's spring exhibition comments? So I sent this.
I don't know.
You don't want to talk really quick.
We can. Let's talk about it. What I was saying is I just don't really care what he.
I texted this to you and I thought it's kind of goofy. So his format is, the defense starts up 24-0, and there's a 60-minute running clock, no quarters.
Why?
Oh, he's clearly just dicking around. He's like, all right, you know what? If I want this, if I want to get to play another team, let's make an example of this.
You know what he's trying to do?
What?
He's trying to make his offense look really good. Because what he's going to do is he's going to put the first team against the second team, and then he's going to run out there, and then they're going to score points. Be like, oh man, we got to talk about Hugh Freeze and Auburn. That's exactly what he's doing.
That's a good point. And I also, anyone who pays attention to spring football, like I remember when I played, the defenses kick the crap out of the offense because they know what's coming. They know all the plays. They go against it every single day.
Right. Agreed. I mean, I just don't really have it. I mean, I will say this. I am intrigued to see the Ashford kid with Hugh Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Him with look. What was your boy's name? Brian Harsin.
Yeah.
What a horrible hire.
Terrible hire.
God.
Not a fit.
Let's see what Ashford can do with Hugh Freeze. I mean, you know what I think? You know what? I said this the other day, and people got on to me. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I think Auburn's better than Arkansas right now.
Yeah, I don't think that's the only thing I give them credit for having
top 15. They're going to be a top 15 team.
They're returning
Arkansas is going to be a top 15 team in the country, and I don't think they're better than Auburn.
It's significant to return KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. That's what I will say.
I agree. You also had 4 offensive linemen leave that started for you last year. Or I think 3 or 4.
An uphill battle.
All right, next one. What we got?
Before we get to the ones in the chat, somebody asked where Stequavius Bennett will be drafted. 4th round is the earliest. 4th round is the earliest he goes. I think that there is.
I'm cool with that.
The media is pushing him. By the way, did you see his video of him getting arrested? That's embarrassing, man. The way he's like.
Did I not tell you that's exactly how it was going to transpire? I said on this show, I told you on this show that it went and exactly how I told you it was going to happen happened. It's dude. Look, if you've talked to anybody in law enforcement that's arrested somebody for drunken disorders, like it all goes the same. He's like, everybody can't get in the car. Nobody can get in the car. It's all the same stuff. He wasn't that bad. He was drunk. I mean,
he was being a little bit of a prick, though. That was like the
show. Everybody getting arrested is acting like a prick.
He was acting a little bit like, how could you arrest Stetson Bennett? Like that was the
every single human being on the face of the planet. Trust me, I've been here.
Okay.
Every single person that gets put in handcuffs and gets brought to jail is a little piece of shit. That's how they act. That's just the facts. He did not act any different than anybody else that gets arrested and goes to jail. I promise you.
Yeah, I mean, that's telling is that if he was a responsible adult and he wasn't like that, he probably wouldn't have been
he's
arrested.
24 years old.
I'm 20. No, he's 25. He's older than me. I haven't been arrested. Knock on wood. I haven't been arrested.
Just because you haven't. You know what you haven't done? You haven't been the starting quarterback for 2 back-to-back national titles.
Wait. I'm not a quarterback though. That's not gonna happen. That's not look. I'm just saying that like it's an excuse because he's 24. I would argue that like that's too old to be doing.
All right, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Why aren't you saying anything about guys like Peyton Manning when they were coming out with sexual assault cases or anything like that? But then the drunken disorderly is the biggest thing that we're talking about.
Because I wasn't around when that happened. I wasn't on this earth.
What?
It was 1998 when that came out.
You weren't born in 1998?
I was, but I think it happened.
Are we still in your dad's ball sack?
Probably.
Okay.
I don't know the timeline.
All right. Maybe that's a bad one. I don't know.
Look, we can pull up other examples, but my point is that we're focusing on this one, and I'm talking about what it means for this one. I'd probably do the same.
Everybody wants to talk about Staquavius. And the only thing that I care about at the current moment is not about his drunken disorder. Joe, that's the chances. Baker Mayfield. Has Baker Mayfield been a problem off the field since his drunken disorderly?
Baker shouldn't have been drafted where he was. I'm just going to say that.
Take that away. Has Baker Mayfield been an issue off the field since?
I'm not worried about if it's not about if I'm worried about him off the field. I don't think Stetson's going to get in trouble in the NFL. I'm worried that the kid's an asshole. That's what I'm worried about. I don't want a quarterback who isn't. I don't want a backup quarterback who acts like that. But that's the thing is Baker is though. Baker is.
Burrow's not got a little bit of an asshole, being a little bit of an asshole to him.
He hasn't been arrested for drunken disorderly.
How do you know?
I don't. But I think that at the very least, Joe.
When you say Joe ain't been,
Joe Burrow at least is somebody who clearly guys rally around him because he is a good teammate.
State. If Joe Burrow got arrested, they'd probably burn the whole state down.
It's like the same crap with Kyrie Irving where everyone's like, well, if you ask all the guys that have played with him, they all love Kyrie Irving. Look at the Mavs right now. They're about to miss the playoffs because they went and brought him in. The guy's a cancer. I don't want guys that are
already missing the playoffs.
They were one of the best teams in the West before they brought in Kyrie.
Losing streak before they traded for him. That's why they traded for him. What are we talking about here? They're on a 7-game losing streak. Luka shot. You want to look it up?
I know that they were on a losing streak, but they're still one of the best teams in the West at the time.
No, they're not. Your wins and losses determine it.
They moved a bunch of guys that are now the reason why the Nets are making the playoffs.
Luka had Trey Murphy from the Pelicans hit 3 threes in his grill. How is that on Kyrie Irving?
That was the whole point, is that they need more defensive players, and they went and got a guy who doesn't play defense. So that's the whole point, is that why would you bring a guy?
He hit it on Luka. But he hit it on Kyrie.
Jalen Brunson, if they kept him around, isn't letting that play go down. All right, let's get to questions
during the season.
Wait. Brumfield agrees with me. They traded away their best defenders. That's the whole point. You're bringing in a guy who's a piece of crap.
He also said this.
It is Kyrie's fault. It is Kyrie's fault because he doesn't play defense.
Trey Murphy hitting a shot in Luka Doncic's face is not Kyrie's fault or problem.
Forget that one specific play. He doesn't play defense.
One specific play, Joe. It was in the fourth quarter, and Murphy was draining it from 3.
It's every game. It's every game.
Hold on. Have you? Yeah, on Luka it is. Have you ever seen the Endgame with the Marvel movie Endgame?
Yes.
Do you remember when Thanos says rain fire?
Mm-hmm.
That's what Trey Murphy did on Luka Doncic from 3. Okay. All right.
Let's get some more football questions.
All right. What's the next one?
Well, we don't have any other. I have too many South Dakota State questions that I'm not answering. So what do we have?
Where are some of these in the chat? Do you have them?
You highlighted this one at the top. When is it?
This from Blaine Smith. When is the SEC going to officially announce? They already did the new conference alignment with Texas and Oklahoma. They already did, right? I mean, alignment. I mean, they already came out with the permanent opponents. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Blaine Smith says, can Wisconsin start winning the conference in 3 or 4 years now that Fickle's there? What do you think?
I think in 3 to 4 years,
You're not winning the conference.
In 4 years, Luke Fickle's a really good coach. I think that Wisconsin could be one of those teams that maybe doesn't recruit well, but dominates the portal. I really think that they can do that. Cincinnati, he got Cincinnati to a playoff.
Yeah, but that's not sustainable, though. He's still got to bring in high school recruits. Like, we talk about this portal stuff.
He got a 5-star to go to Cincinnati. That is hard.
Deion Sanders got a 5-star to go to Jackson State. But you know what else? They still got beat in the Celebration Bowl.
Because everybody was already was mentally at Colorado at that point. That was why they lost that game.
I don't know. All right, next question. What we got?
This was kind of a goofy one.
Anybody remember the player that scored the lowest?
It was Tyrann Mathieu, right?
Was it?
I think it was Tyrann Mathieu. Could somebody look that up? Somebody in the chat should look that up. I think we've got enough people tuning in. I'm trying to see if we have any other questions. We got a lot of comments.
Hold on. This is going to drive me nuts.
Colin was asking if we went back to college football. That was the last question that we had. Notable question that we had. Colin, thank you for the questions this week, by the way. You had good questions.
Yeah, good questions.
We're not going to get to all of them.
I like it.
Colin's very leading. Colin knows how to get me upset.
All right, let's see. Mo Claiborne. Mo Claiborne from LSU
he got a 4. So that's 2 LSU guys. Blake, what are we doing here?
No, that's not the lowest.
Frank Gore was one of them.
Ed Prather, Frank Gore, Vince Young had a 6.
Texas. What was Tyrann's was down there?
I don't remember if Tyrann went to the. I don't think. I mean, it's certainly not in the lowest 3 though.
He went to the combine though. He definitely went to the combine.
Yeah, maybe he did. Let me look. Hold on. Let me see this. Maybe I can look at another article. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a damn near perfect score. Who would have ever thought about that?
He went to Harvard.
Well, just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean you're smart.
That's true. Don't tell my girlfriend that.
Oh, she went there? She went there?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know Mo Claiborne was that dumb. Bro, you get you get a 4 for writing your name down.
Yeah, so that means, how much of a dunce he was. I mean, he was a terrible pro. Maybe there isn't a score for Tyrann Mathieu. I was trying to look at.
Yeah.
Oh no, he scored a 22. Maybe I was mixing him up with Mo Claiborne.
You better be glad that he scored a 22 because you know what? If he would have scored a 4 and had a Hall of Fame career like he's had, do you think he's had a Hall of Fame career?
He's close. I don't think he's had enough because he had his spurt of just being a really good DB. It ended really quick. And
he had about 6 solid years.
Yeah, I think that last year after he was
this year. You know what the crazy thing about Tyrann Mathieu that you'll never understand or people don't understand? He's gonna always lead in something.
Right.
Which is crazy. All right, we got any more?
No, I think it's good to wrap us up on.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back Monday. Who knows what we'll talk about? I want to argue. I love arguing with you. It's so fun.
Well, we've got Wednesday. We're going to do the defensive coordinator ranking. So that one will be that'll be a fun debate.
Okay. Why off the top of my head did I think Pete Golding?
Because he's the best defensive coordinator one of the best defensive coordinators in the country.
You know who's not?
Say it.
Marcus Freeman. We're out. See ya.